Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
No,
Whoa!
That's exactly what you just said.
I did.
Hands on the wall. Hands on the wall. Hands on the wall.
I did not say.
Oh my God, you guys. I am so tired right now, but a situation is blowing up and we need to talk about it. So first off, you're gonna know pretty much everybody involved in this situation. Firstly, we've got Jidion. Y'all know who Jidion is. He has 12 million followers across different social media platforms. He goes all around the country and he does sting operations to catch and put them in prison. And we like that. And he went to Polk County, Florida. That's Sheriff Grady Judd County. And you guys know that I know Sheriff Grady Judd as well. And now somehow, Mr. Chris Hansen is catching strays in all of this. And I'm gonna break all of this down to you because since I know pretty much everybody involved in this situation, I think I might be able to shed some light on this. And also, we need to talk because mistakes were made. And they're the type of mistakes that should never be made. So everybody buckle up because this is gonna be a wild ride. Let's go. All right, so the first thing that I need you to understand is that every single state in the United States of America is gonna have different laws as to how they deal with. Now, the state of Florida has some good ass laws, bruh. If that child is 13 or under, they can actually give you the death penalty. But on top of just having different laws, every state and every county, they're gonna have different procedures that they like to use because they know the prosecutors, they know the laws, they know how all of this stuff works. So it's best to talk to the sheriff's department or the police department, whoever has jurisdiction where you're gonna be before you do one of these things, so you know exactly what they need to make the burden of proof.
Real girl. And did he not admit that he did send these messages?
Do you understand? But you understand that we can't just take an admission and just go take him to jail.
Okay, that's why you have to. You talk to one person.
So you have a contact with our detective who works these cases. Okay, why do you not contact that detective and say, hey, I have another case that needs to be investigated properly so that we don't run into this issue?
So that they can take it to the prosecutor and make it a win of a case. Otherwise, they might not want to work with you on it.
Why are you putting this energy to somebody trying to report a crime instead of the person that was actually talking to a minor?
Because if you wanted to report a crime,
yes, sir. Okay.
You would have contacted our detective and you would have gone through. So
you guys can't investigate?
So we can investigate the whole thing as is necessary by the state and the prosecution. I can't testify. Nobody can testify.
You're lying.
To the origin of those messages, where they come from.
Now, I don't know exactly what Jidion provided them with as far as proof, whether it met the burden of proof. It seems like at first the deputies were going to go with it, and then one of their superior officers came out and just sunk the whole case and wasn't willing to work with Jidion at all whatsoever. And in fact, he thought Jidion was just some small-ass content creator with like 10 followers. Instead, turns out, dude's got 12 million. He's been doing this for a long time, and he kind of knows his shit, bro.
Awesome, man. We want to have a conversation. Either we can have the conversation here or at court tomorrow. How often do you watch these type of videos?
Almost every day.
You watch these videos almost every day. When was the last time we've been on Zangy or Telegram?
I haven't been on Zangy at all.
We do have Zangy. Were you arrested for touching those children?
Yes, I was.
So why are you doing it again then?
If I see this anywhere, I'm gonna go get a lawyer. I already have one.
Okay, does your lawyer know you're coming to meet a 10-year-old girl?
You can just come. Come on, stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
That being said, I don't know the behind the scenes, and I can't judge that. All I know is that dude that Jidion caught trying to meet up with the minor to diddle the minor's parts is still out here on the streets, and to be honest with you, I don't like it.
Listen, man, I'm not trying to get you in any trouble or anything. I'm just trying to figure out about what's going on.
No, I just started talking with her.
Okay.
And I didn't talk anything about anything.
Okay, when I went through her phone...
She said, you a virgin? I think, yeah. You? She's like, yeah. And then I did ask her what position, and then I stopped at that.
Now, Jidion, throughout this whole situation, started to get a little heated, and he started cussing, and he actually called the sergeant the N-word. But with the little A on the end, not the hard R on the end, if you know what I mean. And the sergeant looked at him and he said, you're gonna call me an N-word now? But the sergeant, he's white, and he didn't use the little A. He used the big old hard R, bruh.
That he was talking to a minor.
No, but you're going about this whole thing wrong, dude.
You just told me when I was standing right here. You said,
Call me a now?
Now, Jidion, this is where he got really mad. Now, personally, I don't know how you can call somebody a word and then have them go, how are you gonna call me this word? And then have that person get mad that you said the word. I understand that there's a difference between the little A and the hard R, but still, it seems a little bit ridiculous when you're gonna use that vocabulary, bring it into the whole conversation, and then somebody goes, dude, like, why are you calling me this? But they say the word that you just said with one letter different. I don't know, bro. I'm too pasty to comment on all that.
whoa!
That's exactly what you just
I
said.
did not say I said nigga.
He said,
And it's on video.
I said nigga. You said nigger.
Oh my God.
What he said is that you called him and he repeated it. He said, are you calling
God.
What I will say is it makes for a hell of a YouTube video, and that's exactly what Jidion did with the footage. He released it, he did the call out, and like it got a lot of views, like a lot of views. So the Polk County Sheriff's Office hasn't really like officially responded. They responded in a comment on the video, but not made like a full-on video response to this situation, which is probably what would have been proper to do in this type of situation. But here's the thing that I don't think that Jidion understands, because he's thoroughly unhappy with the response that he got from the Polk County Sheriff's Office. It's not Grady Judd who's running the socials. And I know this from personal experience because I went out to Polk County. I did an interview with Sheriff Grady Judd. We were just about to drop that interview, and I saw this whole situation, and I'm like, damn, there's some things that need to be addressed before we put this out. Because this whole situation just got really weird, really fast. And considering, like, I don't know Jidion, like, hang out with him, but we've talked before, and I know Sheriff Grady Judd, and I know Chris Hansen, who's gotten dragged into this situation. I should probably address this before this gets any more out of hand. And the hundreds of comments from you, my beautiful community, asking me to comment on it is the only reason that I know about this, because I hadn't seen anything about this until right meow, which is why I immediately decided that I would make a video and let you guys know what's going on. So like I said, Jidion may or may not know this. I think it would just be common sense that since Grady Judd is a sheriff for a whole county and he runs like a ton of people, like a people, you have no idea how many deputies, sergeants, detectives, like how many aspects of this whole scenario that Sheriff Grady Judd is running all day. He's not the one on social media replying to comments and leaving comments and everything. He has a cool team of people that I got to meet that like I genuinely liked them, and they're the ones who responded. Now, when they responded, they brought up Mr. Chris Hansen, and Jidion had some non-choice to say about my brother Chris. And I want to come to Chris's defense on this and just say neither of y'all needed to involve Mr. Hansen in this. And Jidion, I will say this, gave Chris his flowers for saying, you know, he's the OG of the scene when it comes to busting pedos. But I've actually gone out and I've done a bust with Chris Hansen in Alabama, in Blount County, with the Blount County Sheriff's Office. And I have seen the actual inner workings of how Chris Hansen does his stuff. And although Jidion might have a little bit of truth in what he said was that Chris is basically a tourist in doing this because he's not the one who's actually making the ads and all of that. Well, there's a reason why it's done the way that it's done, because there's a specific chain of custody, and the people that actually work for the sheriff's office that are doing these busts with Chris Hansen, they know the rules and the laws of each county way better than Chris does, which is why when Chris goes out and does these busts, Jidion, he doesn't have situations like you're having in Polk County right now. He's working directly with the law enforcement agencies, so they don't have these discrepancies where that dude that you busted, he's still on the streets, and I guarantee you he's out there fervently texting minors his wiener penis right now. That doesn't happen because Chris does things the way that he does them. He's been doing this for so much longer than any of us. He absolutely knows how to make sure that these people go to prison and they stay in prison for a long time. Like, you can't really get mad at the dude who's doing things the right way when you go out and do something kind of half-assed and it doesn't work out, like I guarantee you, if you would have hit up the Polk County Sheriff's Office ahead of time, let them know what you were coming there to do, they could have given you some direction and like some of the like legalities of how things work in their county so that they would have been able to build these cases with you in a way that's going to be effective to be able to prosecute in their county. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't up because I don't know. I don't know exactly what their laws are. I don't know what evidence you provided them with. All I know is that if you're going to go somewhere and you're going to expect them to be able to piggyback off of your evidence and the case that you've built, working with the police is definitely the preferred way to do it.
And it's very clear that he knows he's talking to a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, without question.
And he confirms that.
Yep. He wanted a picture with cut or uncut written on it.
Cut or uncut?
Yeah, we sent him.
Meaning whether he's circumcised or uncircumcised.
Yeah.
Now, what do you suppose he was thinking there?
He's probably uncut and was probably trying to figure out whether our decoy liked cut or uncut.
You ever see anything like that in all
No,
these investigations?
actually, I didn't know
I've
what
never
it
seen
meant.
anything like that in all the investigations. I had to think for a minute what that could possibly mean.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have a chance in 35 minutes to find out from him.
Yep.
And now we've come to the part of this whole entire story that really chaps my whole entire because there's really no excuse for this. Mistakes like this should not be made. Now, I do think that some of the anger is misdirected, but also, you know, if I was in charge of an operation and someone under me up, I would come out immediately, take accountability, and do whatever it took to make it right. And that is where I think Sheriff Grady Judd needs to step up and handle business here. Let's get into this.
This is what we enjoy in Florida. This is the Florida we know and love. Florida needs to set the example for the other states to support the president to get rid of these criminals who are victimizing our people. I didn't start out with once upon a time in a land far away.
So like I said, this situation absolutely sucks. There was a 13-year-old girl named Taylor Cadle, and Taylor, her parents died, and she was adopted by her uncle who became her father. But her uncle was not a good person, and he was doing horrific things to her. Like for a couple of years, she endured this until finally she ended up going to school and talking to somebody, and they took her to the sheriff's office, and she talked to some detectives there, and she was trying to pursue a case. But as she talked to the detectives, they decided that they just didn't believe her. I don't know if it's because they didn't have enough proof or whatever, but they absolutely didn't believe, to the point where they ended up charging her with trying to file a false police report against her uncle. And they ended up actually taking her all the way to court, and she pled out just to get probation because they terrified her, making her think that she was gonna go to juvenile hall or something. And then when she was done with that, they put her right back in the home with the uncle, where the abuse continued to happen. But Taylor, she learned from this whole thing. So the next time that her uncle took her to this spot where he would do terrible things to her, she made sure to set up her phone somewhere where it would record what was happening to her so that she would have irrefutable evidence and proof. And then she took that to the detectives at the Polk County Sheriff's Office, and they ended up getting the probation taken off of her. Her uncle went to prison, but the damage had already been done at this point. You're a 13-year-old girl. You go there desperate, begging for help. They don't believe you. They terrorize you and traumatize you into saying that you were lying the whole time. They put you on probation, homie. They humiliate you while you're being molested by this fat piece of the entire time. It's horrific.
I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what I went through.
Taylor Cadle has been on both sides of the legal system, as a victim and a suspect, all before her 14th birthday.
I think it just made me really hard to trust people. I would say it's definitely hard to trust people, especially people that I should probably trust.
And this is the most disgusting part of this whole situation. For me, personally, as a childhood sexual assault victim, not only did she go to them for help and they didn't believe her, not only did they charge her with a misdemeanor charge and put her on probation for it, but a judge ordered her to write an apology letter to her uncle that had been disgustingly molesting her for years. Can you imagine being a 13-year-old and having to sit down and write an apology letter to your abuser because nobody believed you?
Why punish me? What did I do for you to punish me?
But Taylor Cato's extraordinary case raises questions about how, despite Sheriff Judd's tough-on-crime rhetoric, his department treated a child victim as a criminal.
Nothing that I did was I in the wrong. I kept it secret because going through foster care, it was already so much of a traumatic experience that I was scared to go back.
And it was never addressed by Sheriff Grady Judd. Now, here's the thing that you have to understand. He has so many detectives that work under him. I'm sure that when this was happening, he was probably not even aware of it. By the time that she actually came in and the charges against her were dropped and they let her off probation and they put the uncle in, at that point, he had to have some awareness that this had happened. And he should have come out and he should have made a public statement. Not because he was directly involved, because I don't believe that he was directly involved in any way, shape, or form in this situation, but it happened under his watch. He's in charge there. Those are his people. And when you are in charge, your people's faults, your people's mistakes still land on your desk in one way, shape, or another. And he should have addressed it. He should have taken accountability. Those people should have been reprimanded. They should have been, I would fire these. If it was me, I would be irate. I would have gone out and I would have lambasted these detectives for the way they treated that little girl. But none of that happened. They just tried to sweep it under the rug. It was never addressed. And now Taylor is like 22 years old and she is suing. And this whole thing is coming out, and they have still failed to make a proper response. In fact, this is the response that they made about the lawsuit.
In response to the lawsuit, a spokesperson for the Polk County Sheriff's Office called it frivolous, saying, quote, "In this case, our deputies did an extensive investigation and made deliberate and rational decisions based upon the information and evidence we had at the time." Now, that statement went on to say the sheriff's office looks forward to, quote, vigorously defending against these baseless and fabricated allegations. The two named deputies in the lawsuit are still employed at the sheriff's office as a detective and as a lieutenant. Josh?
And listen, I don't know who wrote that response, but I can guarantee you it wasn't Sheriff Grady Judd. But that is an absolutely disgusting and unacceptable response to this situation. To call this frivolous is just adding more insult on top of the injury that happened. This girl was the victim. She was molested by her uncle, somebody who should have been trustworthy, somebody who had adopted her, somebody who should have protected her with his life. And instead, he victimized her like the disgusting piece of predator that he was. And the detectives who were supposed to protect that community and protect that little girl, they failed and they victimized her by giving her charges because they didn't believe her, and they were wrong, dude. They were in the wrong. There's nothing frivolous about this situation. This is serious as a heart attack, and it should have been addressed years ago. And because they failed to do that, now they're looking at a lawsuit. And there's not a good way to say this. They up, and they're probably going to lose a lot of money for this. And Taylor Cato deserves some money for this. And I don't know if she would have pursued this if they would have just owned it in the first place and helped her heal. Because imagine being a 13-year-old girl and you are being molested and you go through the whole process of asking for help and then they blame you. Dog, I can't with that. I absolutely can't with that. I like Sheriff Grady Judd. The reality is, the Polk County Sheriff's Office puts away more child predators than most sheriff's offices do in their entire existence in 1 year. He is aggressive about going after. He is passionate about it. But this was a man, and you gotta call a spade a spade. Even though I consider the dude a good dude, and I consider the dude a friend, when somebody up, they have to own it, they have to take accountability, and they have to do everything they can to make it right. That's part of being a man, that's part of being in a trusted position in your community, and it's part of being a leader.
Florida is a unique place and a special place. It's where we work, where we live, but it's also where the world comes to play, to bring their children. And their children have a right to be safe. And that's guaranteed under the leadership of our governor, our speaker, our president, and the way we do business in Florida.
At the end of the day, Jidion, Sheriff Grady Judd, Chris Hansen, and I, we are all on a very similar mission. We just do it a little bit differently. We are all out here to hunt, expose, and harm so that kids can be safe. So it really sucks to see drama and static going on in a community of men who are protectors. But some things happened, and I want to know your opinion on it down in the comments. Let me know, who do you think was in the right? Who do you think was in the wrong? Where do you think things should go from here? And when will we just get one giant wood chipper? All right, you guys, I'm out. Till the next one, it's always one love. Be good or be good at it, baby.